Hello and welcome to the Slingshot channel. As you may know, I'm a great fan of the Romero zombie movies, like Dawn of the Dead, the zombies in the mall, and of course Day of the Dead, the zombies underground in this cave. And then, last not least, the best of all of them, my personal favorite, Land of the Dead. And in Land of the Dead, when I watched it again a few days ago, I noticed that Cholo, one of the main characters, is actually using an underwater spear gun, like exactly this model here. I mean, they decorated it a little bit, but it's clearly exactly this model. The Cressy Sub SL Star pneumatic, was it pneumatic? I think the P is silent, sorry for that. The pneumatic spear gun. And he's actually using it to kill one zombie from a distance, from the back of a truck, and another one that is attacking him, where he just shoots upwards and it goes straight through the head of the zombie and then actually embeds itself deeply into the ceiling. So we want to find out if this is really possible, if it's viable or is it just a movie trick. And if it is viable, I mean, the manufacturers say you can't fire it above water, but we'll test that out and we'll see if it's really plausible that this is an anti-zombie weapon. And if it is, then we will try to make a better one. At home, of course. Okay. And bang! Whoa! Not bad. Alright, so let me first talk about the weapon itself a little bit. Now, this actually is an air gun, yeah, it's an air gun. It uses compressed air to propel the projectiles, but it's doing that with a different concept. It is not ejecting the air like a normal air gun or air pistol would do. What it does is it uses the compressed air here in this cylinder as a replacement for a steel spring. So actually, what you do is you take one of the projectiles and you fit it in, and then you press down on it, moving back the slide, that actually, of course, has O-rings and everything, and cock it against the resistance of the compressed air, of the pre-compressed air, sorry. And if you pull the trigger, then actually the sled will be launched forward to the resting position, and the projectile will exit the barrel. And this would normally be requiring a license in Germany, but because the German gun law makes an exception for spear guns, underwater sporting devices, this can be bought by anyone over 18 in Germany. Now, the power of this thing greatly depends on how pre-compressed the air is in it. And what they give you is, they give you a pump. It actually comes with every one of these spear guns, and you can actually just simply wind it into the rear of the gun and then pump it up. Now what I've done is I've pumped it up to the max. This means from the factory I gave it another 100 strokes to make it more powerful, because let's be fair, I mean, if we want to kill zombies with this thing, you want every bit of power that you can muster. I can't pump this up any higher because otherwise my body weight is not high enough to push down on the pump handle. So this is like maximum, and it is seriously powerful now. Projectiles. Well, of course, you can buy spares for this thing, and they're quite expensive. Now, underwater spares are supposed to be really massive and heavy, because you want as much momentum as possible in the dense media water, far more dense than air. So this is like a massive steel rod that I made myself, because the factory ones are too expensive, and I lost them underwater somewhere. Therefore, I just always keep making new ones for me. And this one is actually a hollow steel tube, so it's a little bit lighter, and it has a normal threaded connection for conventional arrow tips. So I can just mount any arrow tip on this here, like this one here, but it could be any one. And the only thing that is important is that you have this little notch here, because that centers this thing into the barrel of the gun nicely. So otherwise diameter and so on is not so important. Now, how do I cock it? Well, I simply put the tip in here, put it down on the ground, and then push down with my body weight until it engages. And then it's cocked and ready for shooting. Okay, now Cholo shoots this from a distance of a few meters, I would say like about 5-6 meters from the back of a truck. And let's see if we can reproduce this, if we can hit the target. I would say we use the little cardboard target there. to represent the zombie head. Let's see if we can hit it and if it also sticks in straight, because these unfledged arrows won't fly far in a stable fashion. Okay, now coconut time. We have a coconut, and we will get very close to it because, you know, he's holding the zombie at arm's length, and then he fires at the head, and therefore that's what we will do. Point blank. Whoa! Seems like it was no problem. Plausible. Let's weigh it. 144 grams. We will now clock the speed to figure out how much energy and momentum this thing really has. 27 meters per second. Now this means that we get about 52 joules of energy, but a momentum of about 3.9 Newton seconds, and that is quite a lot. That's definitely in the large caliber pistol size. It's more than a 45 ACP, and I think it's getting really close to the 44 Magnum. I have to look it up on the chart. But in any case, you also saw what that means. Did you see that it topples over the archery mat? Because this thing has more power than an adder crossbow in terms of energy, but in terms of momentum, it is absolutely overkill. No wonder that they fly so well underwater. Myth-busting land of the dead. Well, plausible, absolutely plausible. Yes, Cholo could have used this thing, and he could have killed a zombie from a few meters distance, and he could have actually shot a spear right through the entire skull of a zombie and nailed this thing into the ceiling. Absolutely plausible, well done, and I congratulate the late George A. Romero for his accuracy when it comes to how weapons are used against zombies. So, very, very good Speargun. But can we do better here at the Slingshot channel? I think we can. Meet the homemade underwater bolt action Speargun. Let me show you its features. Well, as you know, we've been making underwater Spearguns for a while. This is the famous Scuba Ringer. And it's actually shooting with two little cartridges that look like they were shotgun shells, but they're not. They're just air-filled cartridges. And it's shooting arrows that glide here over these little barrels. This one is actually now sold out, and it will soon come in an MK2 version where it's a little longer, it has longer, more powerful cartridges, and it's just overall much improved versus this one here, even though this is super successful. But it is too weak. We want more power. We want more power. Can we get that? Sure. These are the cartridges from the Scuba Ringer, and actually you fill them up with compressed air, 5,000 psi. Yes, 5,000 psi. 350 bar. And then they are, of course, very powerful. They have this little burst disc that actually, if you penetrate it, if you perforate it, then the shot will fall. Just much like a primer on a normal firearm round. And yeah, but this is the new version. And as you can see, it's longer, a full centimeter longer, and this means that it holds 50% more air. And that also means that it has potentially 50% more energy. To cock the weapon, you have to pull on this part here until it locks in place. And then you see that the trigger actually presses down on this little knob. It's a very simple trigger construction. And it presses it in, and then the shot falls. So I can now show you how to load the cartridge into the system. It's actually bolt action, therefore I just swing this open like so. Then I open the lock. Then I take my cartridge, I put it in, close the lock, and then I'm ready for shooting. All I have to do is draw back the cock, and then I can fire. To fill these cartridges, what you do is you remove the little cap here. And then you take one of these burst discs, you put those into the cap, like so. And then you simply screw it on. and you can see it's still flat. That indicates that this one is not under pressure. Fill them up is really simple. You just take this kind of adapter here and you screw this right on. And there's a little O-ring that has to disappear completely so that it's on here firmly. And this here is a quick connector that you also find in like paintball stores, but also for PCP air guns. So this is very common and very standard. Now you can pump it up, and you could either use a PCP hand pump. You can get these from like about $40 on Amazon. But you can of course also use a compressor. I prefer the compressor because it's much more flexible. So here is the compressor. As you see, there's a little pump in here that cools it with water. Just cycles the water through the cylinder part here. There is a gauge, and there's a little quick connector here. And all you do is you connect it to this like so. $5,000. Now you can see that there's kind of a bowl shaped, so it's like actually convex, I think is the right term. So you can see it's pressurized. It's hard to believe that in this little cartridge you have the same amount of air that you would find in a large Coke bottle. So that is a lot of force. And of course I also have to muzzle load the spare. So this is a massive steel spare with a hunting arrow tip. So I can just slide it in like so, and you see it's very tight. So we now cock the gun. Whoa! Woof! And by the way, this is how it looks like when you go fishing with it underwater. You can see that you have a fairly short string, could be a little longer maybe, that's attached to this little part here, and also to the arrow. It's very simple, it's just tied onto the front here between the tip and the shaft. And this makes sure that you will always be able to retrieve it, and you will also be able to haul in the fish. The other thing, of course, you would use a different tip, that's for sure. The entire system is actually made from several tubes that I bought on eBay. So there's a thinner tube that has the inner diameter of the projectile, and then there is one where the cartridge exactly fits in, and then of course there is one that is as thick as the rim of the cartridge. And this is also where the slide goes through, like here. So these are two of the tubes that I used. So this one exactly fits the cartridge, and this one here exactly fits the rim of the cartridge. Very simple. And it of course also fits over this one here. So very easy to put together. And as you see, I tried to make those very comparable in size, in diameter. So this is almost the same length and the same everything. We are using this massive arrow, and it weighs 175 grams, so it's a little heavier than the one that we shot with the Cressy model. Okay, let's shoot it over the Crony. Also 27 meters per second, but with a much heavier arrow. Yeah, we know at roughly about 65 joule, so that's a lot of energy for an air pistol, basically. And the momentum with almost 4.8 Newton seconds is absolutely huge. Speargun arrows usually will not fly stable over longer distances because they will start to tumble on air. In water it's different because it's so much more dense that it doesn't really start to tumble. In air it can happen because spare guns are usually massive and therefore they're not front heavy, but you need the front heaviness for a straight flight. Well, this one here is hollow, so it's a hollow aluminum tube that has been plugged at the rear end, and it has a normal arrow insert. So it is slightly front heavy, not too much, but slightly, and therefore we will see if it flies more stable over this 10 meter distance. I think it was a success, wouldn't you agree? Well, I think the little duel, the winner is my homemade version. Would you not agree? It's more powerful, it kind of looks more cool. But I have a lot of respect because the Cressy is a well-made product. A very small package, very silent. It's probably for underwater purposes, it's the better weapon. But this does not mean that this is not viable. And again, my hat is off to George Romero, who is a genius filmmaker, unfortunately, no longer alive. I hope you like this little Speargun episode, because that's it for today. Thanks and bye-bye.